Hi, welcome to another edition of Montague's Battle Reports. This is me. I played last Friday against my friend James. We were practicing for Bayou Battles, so we're both playing our Bayou Battles list. He's got his rats and I've got my dwarves. We rolled up a loot scenario, so we went ahead and deployed. This is his center. He's got, let's see, three hordes of shock troops. He's got a horde of the plague guys in the center there. Two units of slaves. He's got the monster behind them. He's got a couple of casters with lightning bolts. He's got a guy on a horse, which is that sort of doom wheel thingy in between the two hordes there. He's got 3 flame cannons. And then he's got one other unit of slaves on his far left, my right. On my right, I've got my regiment of Brock troops with strength, my troop of Brock riders, my Brock rider lord with the blade of Beast Slayer. Oops. I've got my Earth Elementals with haste in the center of the field alongside my greater Earth Elemental, and they're backed up by their Stone Priest buddy. In the center left, I've got my 2 units of Ironclad. I've got both of my Organ Cannons and my Flame Cannon. I've got my Army Standard Bearer with the Diadem of Dragonkind, my Horde of Shield Breakers. And then I've got my King with wings, represented by the Gyrocopter over there on the far left. And I've got my other organ cannon there sort of facing off my opponent. My plan to win this loot scenario was to advance out and sort of get on top of and then in front of the loot with relatively high defense units, pick it up with fairly high nerve units and just get out. I knew that I had to take out the individuals with lightning bolt, and I knew I had to take out the 3 flame cannons if that was going to be successful. On the right-hand side, I won the roll to go first and chose to go first. On the right-hand side, I moved the troops up towards that loot token right across from those slaves. I moved my Brock Riders and my Brock Lord up to sort of start getting an angle on the left flank of his main host. In the center, I moved up the Elementals to sort of take the forest first. And then on the left, I started advancing towards the other loot token, bringing my shield breakers kind of around. I deployed a little sloppily, but I wasn't too worried about it because I wasn't expecting him to play very aggressively. So I knew I'd have some time to reorient myself and get myself back into play. He advanced as well, turning his battle line a little bit to face my Brock Riders and also just sort of opening it up, heading towards the objectives, using his slaves out in front to block charges towards his meteor units. That was okay by me to a certain extent because they were also blocking his meteor units from getting to me, so long as everybody was not in charge range. And he advanced his slaves up on the left-hand side. Lightning bolts, I believe, did about 3 wounds to my organ cannon. And then it was my turn. I went ahead and just pulled the trigger. I sent my Brock Riders into the flank of the slaves and my Brock King or my Brock Lord into the front of the slaves, wanting to pop them and just be ready to continue on. And then I went ahead and charged in the center as well. It took me a while to figure this out and to think this through. There wasn't a lot of good options, but I figured that the Earth Elementals could hold against a countercharge from just the monster and the regiment of slaves, and then I would just stymie him for a little while from getting that token. And that's what the field looks like on the right-hand side with things opened up. And that's me sort of checking ranges. I made a mistake going into those guys. The plague guys were going to go into my flank, and they have Pathfinder. That was probably really stupid. In truth, I should have just waited. If I did that, he would have come up with his slaves and grabbed the token with them, but that's okay. I would have been able to kill the slaves and bounce back. I should have just held the line, but I didn't. I was aggressive. And that's me checking that flank again. And that's my left-hand side. I moved up between the organ cannons, putting the shield or the ironclad in front of the shield breakers. It's been working out pretty well that way. I see that his hero is right there, and he can charge either one of my organ cannons, so I'm hoping to put some wounds. And if you look at the upper left-hand corner of the picture, you'll see my king fighting one of his individuals. And man, this king, 5 attacks, he's just a big fail. I was hoping he'd kill him, every other turn, and it just took him forever to take those guys out. Did some wounds to the slaves, but didn't even waver them. Or I might have wavered them. I did a bunch of wounds to the slaves. I don't remember if I wavered them or not at this point. I turned the Brock Riders around after combat so that I could go back and get the loot token that was behind me. And did some wounds to his hero there, but didn't kill it. And then he countercharged. So this is kind of interesting what he decided to do. He sent the slaves and the monster into the earth elementals. He sent the... I might have skipped a turn here. He advanced the rats up, and he went into my greater earth elemental with his plague guys, or he did that, or he went into my ironclad with his plague guys and bounced. I forget. Let me see. Ah, yes. So he went into my ironclad, did 7 wounds, and wavered them, and they did not pass their headstrong check. So I just charged with my greater earth elemental. This is actually my turn. Sorry. Charged my greater earth elemental into his plague guys. And you see on the left-hand side, his horde of, you can just barely see them, his horde of shock troops went into my ironclad as well. They popped the ironclad, and then of course on my turn I countercharged with the shield breakers and picked up the loot. Did 12 wounds but bounced off. And did some wounds, 3 wounds to the plague guys, bounced off. He did about 6 wounds to my elementals but didn't kill him. His turn, he goes back into my, he countercharges into the shield breakers. I'm feeling okay about that. And he sort of moving his rats out towards my troop of rock riders that has the loot token. He triple charged the front, or double charged the front of my elementals. My rock riders are in position to flank the plague guys. Weird. Sorry, this is an older picture. I'm not sure why it's out of order. Anyway, you can see that charge into the ironclad. So that's about a turn and a half ago. And they do some damage to him. I'm not sure if they kill the elementals or not this turn. Let's find out. His flame cannons have moved up. They kind of tried to get in position to do some damage. And then he decided to take that back, turn 2 around towards my Brock Rider, who's coming around the forest in the back, trying to kill him. Yeah, this is old stuff. I'm sorry. I'm not sure how these pictures got out of order, so my apologies. So anyway, this is the fight, the 7 wounds to my ironclad that wavered them. His king, or his hero on the horse, got into my war machines. Kind of made the flame cannon irrelevant for the most part. And that's just me checking ranges. And, yes, he went in there, did a bunch of wounds. Now I have the final piece of the puzzle. He went in there, did a bunch of wounds for the ironclad, and double-wounded it. So they held their ground. And he did 11 wounds. Okay, so now we're back up to our regular time. He did 11 wounds to the shield breakers, and they held, so they countercharged. And I double charged into there and flank charged them as well to pop those plague monks. This was actually a mistake, kind of. It worked out okay, but it wound up trapping those Brock Riders who also had picked up the loot token. And there's the Brock Riders kind of looking at those slaves, saying, come get some. They did some wounds to my Berserker Brock Lord, but he went ahead and jumped on that guy and popped him. My king still harassing that stupid wizard and failing to kill him. I must have popped the other one with shooting, probably from the organ cannon. And hey, finally killed the guy. Yay! It was like 2 or 3 turns of fighting. And I killed the one flame cannon. So at the end, there was some confusion over this charge, and I wish I would have gotten a shot of it. I might have one out of order in a little bit, but after I popped the plague guys, I was trying to find an orientation for my Berserker Brock Riders that wouldn't get them flanked. And this is what we eventually settled on, but we did have some confusion about the charge. He thought that if he could get his corner to touch the flank of my Brock Riders that he could get into the flank, but all those things were in the way and there was no way for him to get in there clean and clear, and we weren't sure if we had to nudge stuff out of the way for that or not. At the end of the day, we said the charge was not possible. I'd love some feedback on this because it's kind of confusing. I wish, and if I have the picture, I'll let you know, and you can comment on it from there. But it was just it was a weird discussion, and we weren't really sure what it was. At the end of the day, he went ahead and countercharged there, double charge or triple charge the Brock Riders, and yeah. And he's starting to advance towards my Berserker Brock regiment, or Berserker Brock troop. I popped the shock troops and moved up so that I was facing the flank of the other shock troops. The other shock troops finally killed the very brave Ironclad unit. They did about 14 wounds to the Brock Riders, but that didn't kill them, so the countercharge, I went ahead and charged the big monster and killed it on my turn. And then the giant and the shield breakers went into the other shock troop unit and killed it. I charged his slaves with the Berserker Brock troop. Alright, yeah, so then we stopped taking pictures because things got really intense. I'll try to narrate the rest of it. So on the right-hand side, we just started clearing everything out. I eventually brought my king over to act as a stopgap to keep him from getting towards my giant, which had stolen a second token from one of his units of shock troops. He grabbed, with his other shock troop unit that's standing there, he grabbed the token off the Berserker Brock Riders that they killed. And then on the right-hand side, I had the token on the Brock troop. So he had one token, I had two. I was winning the game. I brought the king over just to kind of get in the way of the shock troops. He brought his flame cannons over in the hopes that he could burn down the Brock troop and take that token with his slaves. I eventually killed the slaves, and let's see if I got another picture. Nope. I eventually killed the slaves with the Brock troops. They survived the flame cannons and survived the game, leaving me with 2 tokens to his 1. I probably had 500 points left on the board at the end of the day. So it was a dwarf victory. It was a pretty rough fight. And hopefully, if we did everything right, then it was a fair fight. If that charge in the middle that we weren't sure about should have gone his way, then it would have been his game. But in either case, it was a really closely held game, and we both played pretty well and had a good time. I continue to learn more and more about this list as I play. My opponent armies are becoming somewhat consistent, so I'm hoping to come across some different armies at Bayou. I've been playing against some different ones on Universal Battle, but anyway, the list continues to do what the list does. You know, I think I use the shield breakers correctly, and I continue to use them better and better each game, where I put the Ironclad in front of them, let the Ironclad take the brunt of it, and then let the shield breakers come in and clean house. So that made me happy. I hate when those guys get wasted. I did probably play poorly early in the game and should not have been quite as aggressive. I should have let him come one more turn to me and then countercharged and started winning that way. But at the end of the day, it worked out. So thanks for listening. And if I have another game before Bayou, Bayou is this weekend. If I have another game tonight, I'll try to get another wrap up before the weekend. If not, then my next battle report will be 6 games worth of Bayou Battles in Houston, Texas. So, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will talk to you soon.